The day had been long, the kind that stretches endlessly, leaving you tired in places you didn't know could ache. By the time the sun began its slow descent, Elena Rivers sat in her car, engine off, staring at the horizon from the edge of the lakeside road. The sky was melting into color, pink, amber, and the faintest violet, reflected in the still water below. She had promised herself she'd take this evening off. No emails, no calls, no to-do lists whispering for attention. Just her, the open air, and the quiet she'd been running from for months. She parked by the lake and stepped out, her shoes crunching softly on gravel. The air was warm but gentle, the kind of warmth that carries the scent of pine and damp soil after a day of sunlight. The cabin by the water. A few steps ahead stood a small wooden cabin she'd rented for the weekend. It was simple, one room, a porch, a hammock tied between two old birch trees, and a view of the lake that looked like it had been waiting for her. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and old books. The floor creaked softly under her steps. The windows caught the last golden rays. She dropped her bag, loosened her hair, and let herself breathe. For a long moment, she just stood there, eyes closed, feeling her heartbeat settle. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of things she'd forgotten how to notice. The soft hum of crickets, the gentle slosh of water against the dock, the faint ticking of an old wall clock. She stepped outside again. The world was changing colors. The lake turning from gold to silver, the sky deepening into a dusky blue. A heron glided silently across the water, its wings slicing through the reflection of clouds. Elena smiled faintly, felt like the earth was exhaling. The evening ritual. She made herself a cup of herbal tea, steam rising in soft curls as she sat on the porch. The first sip tasted of chamomile and honey, warm, grounding. The kind of taste that tells you everything will be okay, even if nothing is fixed yet. From the distance, she could hear faint laughter. A couple of kids skipping stones further down the lake, their voices echoing faintly before fading into the hum of dusk. She leaned back in the chair, closing her eyes, and for the first time in months, didn't feel guilty for doing nothing. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain, that soft, metallic sweetness of clouds gathering somewhere beyond the hills. The light dimmed slowly, and the first stars began to appear. Somewhere inside her, something unclenched. Memories on the water. When she was little, Elena used to come to a lake like this with her father. He'd bring an old radio, tuned low, playing jazz as they sat on the dock. She remembered how he'd always say, "The world gets quiet if you listen kindly." Back then, she didn't understand what that meant. But sitting here now, watching ripples dance under the stars, she finally did. She walked down to the edge of the dock. The wooden boards were cool under her bare feet. She sat with her knees tucked to her chest, the cup warm between her palms, the reflection of the moon shimmering in her tea. The sky deepened to indigo. Fireflies appeared, small, wandering lights hovering just above the water, blinking softly like they were trying to talk to the stars. Elena let the silence fill her. Her mind stopped chasing. Her thoughts slowed into gentle shapes. Memories, sensations, gratitude. A visitor. A soft rustle came from the trees behind her. She turned, half expecting a deer, but it was a man walking slowly toward the dock. Gray-haired, holding a lantern, his dog padding quietly beside him. "Didn't mean to startle you," he said with a kind smile. "Not at all," Elena replied. "It's peaceful here." The man nodded, the light from the lantern flickering against his weathered face. "Been that way for as long as I can remember. The lake doesn't change much. It just waits for people to slow down enough to notice it." He paused beside her, looking out at the reflection of stars. "You here alone?" She nodded. Just needed a break. He smiled knowingly. Best medicine I know, silence and water. For a few minutes they just stood there together, not talking. The dog sat at her feet, tail thumping softly against the wood. When he finally left, the night felt a little friendlier. The rain arrives. It began softly. A faint patter on the leaves, a whisper on the roof. Elena stayed on the porch, watching the raindrops fall into the lake, each one sending tiny rings outward. Thunder rolled somewhere far away. Not frightening, just deep and slow, like a heartbeat from the sky. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and kept watching. The rain blurred everything into watercolor. The trees, the moon, her own reflection. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to hold anything together. The world could rain and fade and start over again, and so could she. The candlelight hour. Later, when the rain softened into mist, she went inside and lit a single candle. Its small flame painted the walls gold. She turned off every light, letting that one flame be enough. The sound of the rain mixed with the crackle of the wick. Her breathing fell into rhythm, slow, steady. She took out her journal and began to write, not about her work or her worries, but about the tiny things she'd noticed tonight. The smell of cedar, the softness of the rain, the kindness in a stranger's voice, the way fireflies mirrored the stars. The words came out easy. No pressure, no goals, just truth. When she looked up, the candle's flame danced a little, as if nodding in approval. Midnight on the lake. By the time she stepped outside again, the rain had stopped. Mist drifted low across the water, the surface glass still. The moon hung just above the horizon, full and patient. She walked back to the dock barefoot, the wood damp and cool. Standing at the edge, she closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. The air was sweet, rain, earth, pine. Everything was slow. Everything was soft. And in that stillness, she realized, peace wasn't something she had to chase. It was what remained when she stopped running. She whispered into the night, "I'm here." The echo came back, faint but real, and that was enough. The next morning, when dawn arrived, the world glowed pale gold. Mist curled above the lake, birds began to sing, and sunlight reached through the clouds like gentle fingers. Elena stood at the window holding her morning coffee. Her reflection in the glass looked rested, lighter somehow, like someone who'd left a heavy coat behind. She smiled to herself. Maybe the world hadn't changed overnight, but she had quietly, gently. Outside, the lake sparkled under the new sun, calm and alive. She whispered one last thing before stepping outside. "Thank you." And the breeze that passed by seemed to answer, "You're welcome."